Hello, Kelly here with Kelly's Soroka Life and the home of the Broom and Moon Coven. So today I wanted to share with you a something kind of different. This is a slideshow that I am going to give you as kind of an inspiration for ways that you can use your cards. So over the past many years, I have used tarot cards and all kinds of different kinds of cards for different reasons. I first started out with tarot and using tarot in just readings. And so I did mainly just readings for myself. And then I branched out and started doing readings for other people. And then I collected a lot of decks, and then I started moving into different types of card decks like Oracle cards, Lenormand, and now I'm learning about Sibylla cards, and I'm hoping to also learn and do something with playing cards. And so there's just lots of different ways that I have used my cards. And I one day just started kind of thinking about it, and I started snapping some pictures around during my day in all the ways that I use my cards. And I thought this would be great. I would love to share this and let you all know how I use my cards so that you can let me know how you use your cards as well. And we can share, and this can be an inspiration for you. And it was something really fun for me. And I think, there are things on here, after I finished, and I thought, well, I do this too, or this is something else. So I'll probably add some make some extra posts along the way. But I wanted to get this and to get this out there and get it started so that it can be something that hopefully is inspirational to you, because I know that I get in ruts and I get to places where that I do the same thing over and over again, and I read the same way, or I do the same type of reading, or I just use the same type of cards. And while that's good because repetition is good, and learning, especially when you're learning something new, repetition is really good for that, and really good for for just letting you get deeper into it. And but at a certain point, when you know something so well that you're not really getting anything from it. And one of the reasons that I like to have different places that I use my cards and different ways that I use my cards is because a couple of years ago, I felt like that all I was doing was every day I would, pull out a tarot deck and I would do a reading, and I would, think back maybe in the evening and think, I don't even remember what the cards were, or I don't remember what the message was, or I don't even remember what deck I used, or I don't remember what was on the cards. And if you are familiar with tarot at all, you know that there's a lot to the vision, the vision on the cards, the pictures on the cards, and whatever deck you use, there is, something to what's on the card. And there's lots of different ways that you can use those visions, and you can use the cards and use the structure of the deck to get a good reading. But I felt like that I was just doing a reading, and I would just then just look at the title of the card and not really look at what was going on. Or I would just say, oh, this card means this, and just write it down and not really look at all the cards together. How are they working together? Were there more of this kind of card or more of that kind of card? Were there lots of major arcanas? Were there numbers? Were there colors on the cards that caught my eye? And what did that mean? And so I really felt like that at that time I was in a rut. So I started doing some different things and bringing in some different ways of using the cards, reading the cards. And so some of it's very quick and very easy, and some of it's more in depth. But I'm going to show you, I actually have a slideshow because that was easier than inserting pictures in a video. And then have all these slides for you so that you can download them as well. All right. So let's do this. So this is how I use my cards, and you can too. So the first way is for a seasonal message. And I kind of went one day when I was thinking about doing this video. So one day I just went through I just kind of had my phone with me and took pictures of the different ways that I was using cards throughout the day. And so you can see this one here it says Silent Night, and this is actually the Seasons of the Witch Oracle, and it's the Yule deck. So I took this picture back when it was Yule, which was, December, January. So I had this idea for a while. And so I started gathering the pictures. And then in the last, couple of weeks or so, I've gone back and added some more to the slideshow to these pictures so that you can see them. Now, this particular deck is the Seasons of the Witch Oracle, and I have all 8 of them. And so I use these for a seasonal message. And so these are cards that relate to the season of the witch that we are in. And so right now we are in the season of Beltane. So in this same spot, I have the Beltane cards, and I get a message, and I have some crystals there, and I choose some crystals to go along with it. And this is up in my bedroom. So this is the very first card that I use. I get a message from for the day. And these have really, and I like this because it has the title. You can see here it has the title of the card here, and then it has a message underneath it. And the messages are really good. And they're very witchy, and they're very inspirational. And so I really enjoy using these decks in that way. And I had this, I think the Yule one was the first one that I got. And I really liked it, and it was fun. And I thought, but I don't really need any others. Or, probably Samhain. I probably got that one first because, Halloween. And this one was probably the next one. And so once I got those two, I thought, well, these are the really, they're the 2 times I would really use a seasonal deck. And I don't really care about getting the other ones. But when I started working more with the Samhain deck and the Yule deck, and I realized that I really did like the cards, and I really enjoyed them. So I started collecting the rest of them. So over a few months, I would just order the next whatever season it was that I didn't have. So if it were Ostara coming, then I just and I got most of them over last year. So, and now I have all 8 of them, and I just have them in one place upstairs in my bedroom so that I can, each time the season changes, then I change the cards out. And that's really fun, and it gives me a message to start the day with. So then next I have for a mini message. And I have collected, I don't really buy mini decks on purpose. I don't, I, because I don't really use them. I don't use them. I don't keep like them in a place where I would say, I'm going to do a reading and I'm going to use a mini deck. And so, but I have gotten mini decks for for different reasons. Like the most recent one I have is I got the reprint of the one of the fairy decks that just came out, and the name is just right now escaping me. But it was a fairy deck that was in print for or out of print for a while, and it was brought back into print, and the creator had I think it was on Kickstarter, had the deck and had the guidebook, and it had a mini deck with it. And so I have that one, and I have that one in a different place, but I don't really use that one very much. But I think because I have the big one. And so the mini one is kind of one that, and these are great too if you want to take a deck with you. And I will do that a lot of times is if I'm traveling, just grab one of the mini decks that I have. But this one came, this one is Mildred Payne's Secret Pocket Oracle. And this one is by the creator who does the Deviant Moon Tarot. And he has is Patrick Valenza, and he has a great selection of decks. I have the Deviant Moon, and I have he has a Marseille deck that I have as well. But they're very creepy, and they're very Halloween, and they're very that really going into the witch and the kind of the scary stories. And but this is just a cute little deck. And so I have this one on and downstairs in on a table in my foyer. So I have this one on one side, and I have this one on the other side. And this is the Ofrenda Oracle. And this one came again with a this one is part of a Lenormand deck, and it has some extra cards in it. So it's got the 36 I think this one is actually letter. So it's got the 36, but you can see it's more than 36. And it came with the extra cards, and it was and again a set that was that had some other things in it as well. So these are two that came with, and I think the Pocket Oracle either came with the it maybe came with the Marseille deck when I ordered it, or I ordered it at the same time. So it's usually I don't just buy it by itself. It's something that I have, and I do have other mini decks that I've gotten for. Some of them I've gotten in gift boxes, or the boxes that like the Witch's Moon box, the subscription boxes. When I've had a subscription to those at times, then there a lot of times there'll be, the little mini oracle decks. And so I have, and they are around in different places. I draw, but these are the two that I are in that I see every day, that I walk by every day. And I, draw a card from these two because they're just fun and they're cute. So this one is for a mini message. And then the next one is on an ancestor altar. And so I do have another place that I put things that are for an ancestor, and as just my ancestor altar. And I use this particular ancestor altar it has a Day of the Dead theme to it. And this is, you can see my Day of the Dead mug here. And then this is a little, I think it's a unicorn that has the Day of the Dead, kind of that print on it. And I like this because I just, I like the Day of the Dead. I like that association of honoring the ancestors in, at a particular time. And my son, we adopted from Guatemala, and so he has, Hispanic heritage and not Mexican necessarily, but I feel like that this is kind of brings in that heritage that is part of, that's kind of bringing in that, that wider place of bringing in a way to honor ancestors. Uh, and this is one of the ways that I do it. I have other ancestor altars that I use in different ways and have different things on them, but I really like this for kind of like a family altar that we can put things on. And here, it's not a very good picture, but here, this is the Santa Muerte Tarot. And so this is the Day of the Dead, Santa Muerte, that is she's kind of the patron saint of the Day of the Dead. And so I have her tarot here, and I also have the Oracle. There is an Oracle deck that goes along with it. And so I use that one a lot of times around the Day of the Dead, around the Samhain and that time. But this is just another place that I put cards, and I will pull a card sometime, usually every day, sometimes maybe just once a week, but just depending on what's going on. But this is so you can use, and then you can pick, what you feel like is an ancestor deck to you. There's lots of tarot decks out there that are ancestor related, and there's lots of oracle decks that you can use for ancestor to connect with ancestors. There's lots of decks that are, culture, that have different cultures in them, and different ancestor and, histories that are honored. And so you can find one that speaks to you and use those cards. And then this one is for a weekly reading. And so every week on Sunday, I do a planning session where I look back at the week. I bring out my planner, my journal, my my calendar that's on my computer, that, I put things in during the week if I'm out somewhere, and I put something on my phone and it goes on my digital calendar. So on Sunday afternoons, I look at the things that I want to do for the week, the things that the things I have to do, like appointments and things like that. I put that in down in my planner. And then I put down things that I want to do, things that I want to get done that week, projects that I want to do, things maybe around the house that I want to do, or things that are coming up in the coven that I know that I want to prepare for, or there are things that I want to make sure that I have in place for the coven events. So I do that, and then I do a weekly reading. And so I will use whatever deck that I am studying at the time. And so I have a different deck that I use to study with, and you can see all the videos that I've done of deck reviews, and you can find those just by searching on the channel. And so I use that deck that I'm studying for that month, and then I pull out an oracle deck that I feel like goes along with the deck that I'm studying. And so I have this one oracle card as kind of the theme of the week, and then I will look at each card for each day and write it down in my planner and make a little note. And so when I go back and I see what I have to do for the day, then I'll have that in my planner already. So this was a week ahead that I did maybe maybe March. It may have been, I don't know. But anyway, it's been a couple of months ago that I did this one. And this one, I was studying the Blood Moon Tarot. And if you see this one, it was a really interesting deck, a very interesting deck to study. And so if this is something, if you like decks that are very out of the ordinary, then go back and find this, the link to this review, and you can see the whole deck. And it was, it's not, I won't say fun, but it was very interesting, and it was very out of the ordinary and out of the box. And so if you like decks that still have the framework of the tarot, but really have different artistic take, then you'll like this deck. So I used this one, the Blood Moon Tarot, with the Phases and Forests Oracle. This is one of my favorite oracles. And so this was my theme, visualize a new moon, and it has a question here. And so every day, so this was my Monday card, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I just put it out and I take a picture of it so that I have it and I can look back on it. And I have a nice record, both written down and here, and I can do that as well. And you could definitely adapt this and do it as a monthly reading, or if you wanted to do it a month and do, each week of the month, you could do that as well. But I really like, that just getting my theme of the week and getting me set up and, looking at the cards in a different way. And this one is in a goddess reading. So here there's a message from the goddess with an oracle card and three cards from a tarot deck. So I have three goddesses that I work with on a regular basis. And this one you can see is from the Call of the Morrigan. And so I work a lot with the Morrigan. I work a lot with Hecate, and I work a lot with Lilith. So they all have their own oracle decks, and they all have their own decks, tarot decks that I use with them. And so this particular one, and I do a weekly reading throughout the week with them. And so on Monday, it's a moon day reading with Hecate. On Tuesday, it's the call the Morrigan. I do the Morrigan because Tuesday is the day Mars, the day of Mars, and kind of the battlefield, and she's very much, to me, a battlefield goddess. And then on Wednesday, I do a reading with Lilith. So I do these different readings, and it really starts me out on the week. And it's really great because they really help me when I have questions and when I have something and sometimes I don't have questions, and sometimes I just say, what is it that you want me to know? And but sometimes when I do have questions about things, or I'm having doubts, or I'm having um things things I'm facing that I don't know an answer to, then I just always get just these beautiful readings from these goddesses. And so it's my way of just of having that time with them, and having that conversation, and kind of giving back to them, and giving an offering to them. And because I'll read what is in the guidebook for that entry, and many times there's a prayer or a way to give an offering, or a message. And so, I try to put that in my practice as well, so that it is, this kind of flow and this reciprocal place. So this one was with the Call of the Morgan Oracle. So you can see the Oracle deck here. And then I used the Crow Tarot with her because the crows and the Morgan, they just really go together. And it just seemed like that was a good reading for her. With the Hecate, I use some different moon decks that I have, and then I also use um Circe's tarot, and which is, Circe is a part of, the Hecate myth and the Greek myth, and so they go well together. And then I have a Lilith oracle, and with her I use a deck called the Pythonic Tarot. So that's how I do my goddess readings during the week. And so this is if you're working with a goddess or you just want goddess energy, you don't necessarily need to pick a specific goddess, but you can do something like this and have a card as in that the message or the theme from that goddess or from the goddess, just the feminine, the feminine, that the divine feminine, and use what decks that you have with it. And I'll use crystals, pull some crystals along with it, and just see what the crystals have to tell me as well. But this is definitely one of the favorite parts of my practice now, is doing more in-depth reading with goddesses. And then this is something that I've done for a long time. So this is something but I change it up, and I change, the crystals, I change where the altar is, I change the cards that I use, I change them every so often, so that I'm still doing the reading, but in a different way. So this is for a moon altar. Now, in my moon altar, I change my altar out every full moon and every new moon. So I pull out, so this would have been the new moon in Aquarius. And so I put my new moon card here, and I have a few different decks that have moon cards in them. And so I'll just pick which one I want to use. And then I have a few different decks that have astrology cards in them. And so I'll pick out the astrology card that I want to go with it. And so I'll put these two together. I keep these crystals on this little stand here with my cards, and then I have a little dish here where I put an herb here that I feel like goes along with the spirit of that, whatever the new moon in Aquarius. And I would put this, I was changing this one out. And so this one I would fill up with an herb that I felt like went along with that new moon in Aquarius. And so, and I have a list of herbs that I've used in the past. And so usually I'll just go back and say, what did I do last time? And bring in, or if there's something new that I'm working with and I feel like that it's really going to go with that, I can do that. Or if it's something seasonal, you could also put something seasonal that is growing where you are at that time, and you can also do that as well. So then I put, and this, stays in the front, and this is just some, this goes along with the goddess readings. Then I have three crystals for the goddesses, and then I'll put crystals over here again that I feel like go along with the theme of that month and go along with the theme of that particular full moon or new moon. So it's very, it's very easy. It takes me, just like 5 minutes, to swap out the cards. I usually just offer the herbs outside to the spirits outside when I'm done with them, and then I'll just swap out some crystals and whatever crystals I feel like. Again, I keep a record of ones that I've used, and so I can just go back and see what I've used before and find those crystals and put them back on the altar. So you can do this and make it more complex than this, and however that, or just do it for the new moon, and or you might have decks that have every and some of these decks have that in it. They have the different phases of the moon, and you might want to use different cards during the day as the or during the week or during the month or during that moon cycle that go along with those particular times of the moon cycle. But this round one here is called the Spirit de la Lune Oracle, and this is the Starcodes Astrology Oracle, which is also an excellent deck if you want to learn astrology, because it's very explanatory, and I really like it. And so if you're learning astrology, and you see it says here Aquarius and then collaborate. And so it goes through, and this one I think it has the 12 signs, it has all the planets, it has all the houses, it has some extra things, I think, like Chiron, and just some different, so it's pretty in depth. And so if you want to learn astrology, this is a good one. Okay, and then this is as a daily draw, and you'll hear this a lot, draw a card every day. And if you like to do this, then you can. Now, this one is I do two at a time, but I do a tarot and I do an oracle. I tried for a long time to draw two tarot cards together. And I just never liked it. I never liked the messages. It just never felt like it flowed for me. But you will see a lot of people do that, have the two cards there. And but for me, and I swap these decks out every full moon and new moon when I change my altar. So I'll just put together two decks that I think that will go well together. And this is what I have on right now. This is a picture from just a few days ago when I'm making this video, so in May. And so this is we're in the what are we in? The full moon in Scorpio. So we're in that, yes. So we're in that place of the moon cycle. So and my moon altar is over there. And so my moon altar is there, and then I have when I swap that out, then I just use two decks. And at this time in May 2026 that I'm recording this, I'm also doing fairy magic in the Coven. And so we're learning all about fairy magic. So for this full moon cycle, I'm using the Förhäxa Tarot, which is this beautiful um, tarot deck here, and the Council of Monarchs. This is another name for the Emperor. I think it's the Emperor here, and so this takes the place. And there is some in this deck. There are some changes, but it's this beautiful fairy deck, and along with the Fairy Wisdom Oracle. And it's just a cute one, and you can see this one is the Brat, which I thought was really cute. And so these two, I will sometimes I will use decks that I feel like go along with the energy of that moon. sometimes I'll just, a lot of times I just pick decks that, I just like that go together. And I might pick, a tarot deck and say, oh, I haven't used this one in a while. So let me take this out. And sometimes I'll use them if I know that it's like Scorpio is a water sign, so I might use decks that have to do with water signs or something like that. So it's just really up to you. And but this is I'm facing right here, and this is, over right here. So what you're looking at is just, off camera on to the right side. And so I have, this here, so it's very easy. It's on my desk, and it's there for me to see it, and it's there for me to easily get to it. And it's a great way that I start my day. So I start my day with my tarot and my oracle. And then on this side, I have some candles. And so I light my candles and I draw these cards. And it just kind of helps me, slow down and come into the day and see, what the message is. And so I like it. And some days I really, you know, it- I really feel like that it is, a really deep message. Sometimes, like today, I feel like, this was kind of like, have some fun. And so maybe, the day that I took this, which was a few days ago, it was like, you're being too serious, have some fun. So yeah, I like that as a daily draw. And so this is kind of, if I were going to do anything, if I were going to do just one thing, this would be what I would do with drawing cards. And I would do this, and I a lot of times in the morning, I'll sit down with my journal, and I'll do some journaling and just jot down some ideas that I have about these cards. And if there's cards that have come up in other places and other ways, then I'll make note of that as well. And just as kind of like, I really need to listen to this because this came up yesterday, or, this came up when I did this or something. So this is my daily draw. And again, you can adapt this in any way that you want to. And if it feels too overwhelming to try to draw a card every day, then don't do it. Pick a day, just pick one, like when you do your weekly draw, or if you do a weekly planning session, draw just one oracle card or tarot card for the week, and put it out somewhere that you can see it. Do it for the moon cycle. Pick one that's going to come with you for that moon cycle. And so don't feel like, this to me is, I've done this for so long that it's just part of my day now. And it's part of my practice. And so do something that you're going to enjoy. And I do this because I enjoy it. And I look forward to that time in the morning when with my cards. So this is something that I have experimented with, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it yet. So this is doing a reading along with a book. Now, this one I did, and this is the book, and every month, and if you follow along with the channel, you'll see that every month I have a book that I read and I do a book review on. And so the book that I did last month was this one, of Blood and Bones by Kate Fruler. And it's a really good book. I really enjoyed it. And you can see the review. If you just search for this one, then it will be there. But this is the one I did. And in this one, she has a reading that is kind of gets you in. And this book is about it, like it says, working with shadow magic of the dark moon. So this is working with dark magic, and working with dark magic and blood and bones and the things that go along with dark magic and the history of dark magic. And it's a really good book. But one of her main points in the book is that you really need to be you really need to be in touch with yourself before you do any of these workings because they are, they're powerful and they have lots of consequences that you might not think of. And you need to know yourself why you want to do it. And I think there are definitely times that dark magic or something that is getting, making space between you and another person or a relationship or, there's definitely times for that. And this is a book that you can go to but her premise is to really do work on yourself first before you do these things. And so this was the reading that she has in the book that you can do to um kind of to uncover the reason why you are thinking about using, something like a curse or a binding spell or she has lots of different kinds of spells in there. And so if you're thinking of using one of these spells, she has a meditation and she has a this reading that you can do, which is I really enjoyed. And so I did this reading in the book. So it was something that came right out of the book. And so I did that. And this is the Deviant Moon Tarot that is by the same author of the mini deck, the Mildred Payne mini deck that I have. And so this again, just the Deviant Moon just seemed to go along with this book and it really gave me a really good reading. And so that I like, and I like doing a lot of, I really like doing book readings out of guidebooks because most guidebooks for tarot decks, especially, have lots of different readings in them. And so I really like doing that. And if it's a book like this that has a reading in it, and that, or, suggestions for using your cards, then I really like doing that. Now, the other thing that I have experimented with is as I am reading a fiction book, is every so often to stop with the fiction book and do a tarot reading about what's been happening in the book. And so I will usually, I've done this with a few books, and I'm not, it was fun, but I don't know. I think that because I usually when I'm reading fiction books, I'm just, I'm either, sitting on the couch or I might be sitting outside on my porch or I might be, sitting on my bed. And so when I'm doing that and all of a sudden I get to a stopping point and I think, oh, I want to do a reading, but I don't have anything to write it down, or I don't have anything, I don't have any cards. I've got to get up, or, whatever. And so I've, when I plan to do those kinds of reading and with, as part of reading a fiction book, and the times that I've done it, it's been fun and it's been really informative. But it almost makes then reading the fiction book more like doing, a nonfiction book. It makes it, I guess puts work into it. And I think of fiction books not so much as work. But I think what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try this with the next fiction book that I start, is I think I'm going to ahead of time pick out a deck that I like or even one of the little mini ones that I can carry around and I can put it, wherever where I usually keep in we have a sunroom that we have a couch and there and that's where I really like to sit and read because it's sunny and it's nice. And so and there's a table, we have a table there in front of the couch and a coffee table. And so I think so I have a lot of my fiction books there, and because I'm usually reading more than one fiction book at a time. But I think when I'm going to pick the one that I really want to play around with a deck, and just go ahead and put the deck and a piece of paper and a pen, and just put and stick it in the deck, and put the hang the pen on the side of the book, and so it'll be there and I can just write it down. Or if I don't want to write it down, maybe I'll just make a voice note, and because I can just pick up my phone and 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 make a note that way. Or I can just do it for fun, and I can just have it and just have the cards there, and just say, this was fun, and not feel like that I have to write it down or have to make a note or have to, make it into work. I can just make it into fun. But I think the key is going to be putting, choosing a deck and putting it with the book so that it's there when I pick up the book, and it's already there. But I mean, I like the idea, and it was really fun when I did it. I did it with a book that I read over Christmas, and it was a very short book, and I thought I'm just going to play around with this, and I did it, and I it was a book that had a Christmas theme, and it was around Yule time, so I had my Yule tarot deck, and I just kind of carried it around, and when I got to a stopping place in the book, I drew a few cards and asked a question and about one of the characters in the book or something that was happening. And it was really fun, and it was a different way to use my cards. But I think I just because if I'm doing a nonfiction book, usually I'm sitting in a place like here where I'm reading the book, and I have, I can, grab a pen or a pencil or something, you see my journals right there, and so I can just write it down. And so this, but I think that it's something I do want to do more of, and I do have some actual books that are games that are like role-playing games that you can use tarot decks with as well. And so, or different kind of decks with as well. So, and that's one thing that I haven't, that I want to, it kind of goes along with this, but I haven't done a lot of it yet. So that might be a something that I do in a later video. But this was really fun. And so this is something that you can do if you're reading a book and you just want to have some fun and draw a few cards as you're reading. You're like, I really don't like this character and I wonder why. Or is this should I, this book was recommend, you could do this too. This book was recommended to me, and am I going to like it or not? And so you might want to do pull a few cards and, get, yeah, I'm gonna like it, or no, I'm not really gonna like it. So that would be fun as well. And then with crystals. So I just love crystals as well. So I will do a reading. So this is a reading that I did, and with the Penumbra Tarot, and this is another deck that I did a study with. And so this one I believe was I want to say it was one of the readings from the guidebook. And so I did this one and pulled out four crystals that went along with each element. So this was the air with the selenite, and then the fire with the carnelian, and the serpentine with earth, and then this I think was an amethyst with for west and for the water. So these were it was something that came out of, I believe, came out of that guidebook. And so it was either an elemental reading or it was an elemental spell or something like that. But and I just grab some crystals, and I like to keep just a few, like a handful of crystals, and then I can just, just kind of dig in and pick two or three out of there and see which ones go with this particular reading. So using crystals along with your reading, you can do that as well. Been doing an oracle only. Some people really don't enjoy tarot and or anything that has more of a structure. And so if you are the person who really likes oracle decks and really likes things that really don't have a structure, like Lenormand, has a structure and has specific keywords. So, get an oracle deck and have fun with it. And this was an oracle only deck, and this is called the Secret Oracle of the Green Witch. And so I pulled these as for inspiration and just to get a reading because I thought this was fun, and I really identify with the Green Witch, the practice of the Green Witch. And so this was really fun for me to do this. And so the messages were the Green Witch, which was fun. Ribwort plantain, which is something that grows a lot around here, and it's a very, hardy plant that's very healing. And then the Lady of the Herbs. And so, I felt like that this was just kind of, letting me know that I was, on my right path with, with studying herbalism and, and bringing my practice of witchcraft into herbalism. So, and there are so many oracle decks out there that you can find that have to do with all different subjects. And so find something that you really like, find something that really appeals to you. Go on and, if you're not sure, there's lots of YouTube videos out there that, people have done walkthroughs with decks. You can find Instagram, find the creators of decks, and use that as well. And they're just beautiful readings. All right, we're almost done. These are the last few. So this one is in a ritual or spell, and so you can use tarot cards or any other cards that you have in an elemental. I was using tarot cards in an elemental spell, and so this is. Um, I think one that did come out of, again, I think it was one that did come out of the guidebook. But for any reason, I used this one and I was doing an elemental spell, and I pulled four cards, and I have four, for the elements. Here's the fire, a candle for fire, a seashell for water, a crystal for earth, and a feather for air. And so these were all parts of the ritual that I was doing. And so I had this, and it was an elemental spell that I was doing. And and because tarot cards and other cards are so versatile and have so much meaning in them. You can use them and adapt them for whatever kind of ritual or spell that you want to do. And there are lots of guides that you can find that will tell you what particular cards are traditionally used for. Like the High Priestess here, you would typically, if I were doing a ritual of with the moon, a moon ritual or a spell with the moon, then the High Priestess is one I would definitely look for. So, but all cards are, again, very personal as well. So, along with the traditional elements that there are, you can then find your own associations. And that's when, taking notes and keeping records of your readings is really good because you can then go back and say, I use this means this to me. Or this is a card that says abundance to me, or this is a card that is very shadowy to me. And so if you're doing something in as a ritual or a spell or something, if you're doing the moon, you can use the moon. And if you wanted to do something where you were maybe doing a something liminal and you wanted that duality, you could use the sun and the moon. And then, just different decks that have different art on them, looking at the art, and you can do that as well. So and tarot cards are great. Oracle cards are great, and there's lots of cards out there that have runes on them, and you can use those as well and use those in a ritual or a spell, and they would be great to do that as well. All right, and then here we have as a learning tool, and this is my example here of Lenormand cards because I have a class on Lenormand that you can find the playlist here as well. But I'm showing how to use Lenormand cards with keywords written on them. So this is a Lenormand, this is the cute little Lenormand, and you can see it has the symbol and not much else on it. And it has the playing card associations, the number, but that's pretty much it. So there's lots of room so that I just took a few of the keywords that meant something to me and that I thought that made sense to me and put them and just wrote them right on the card. And so now, when I did this reading, I could look at the cards and really say, okay, well, these two came up together, the mountain and the house. So the mountain is, a delay or an obstacle, and the house has to do with a home. So this is maybe a delay on maybe something arriving at my home. Maybe I ordered something and there's a delay and for it getting there. And then this scythe is a cutting of something, and the rider is news. And so this might be something that I lost communication. Maybe my internet's going out, and I need to know that. So then this one down here, I have ship and the bird. So I have travel with communications. And so maybe I'm getting news about a trip that I'm taking. So you can see how this is a great learning tool. And there are decks that you can buy that have keywords on them, especially tarot decks and oracle decks. There are lots of decks out there that you can buy that have them already on them. But I like to do this and recommend doing this on your own because you put your personal thing, put your personal intention and your personal relationship with the card, and you have a card, and then you have a deck that is very intentional to you and that you can use it as a tool to learn with. So, and there's, other tarot decks that are much more minimalist and have room to write on. There are oracle cards that are, more minimal that you could write, your own keywords, or if you have an oracle deck that you really like and you want to have some keywords on it or some, what does this mean to you? You can just do that for yourself. But this is great to do so that you can learn with it and you can see how you put it out. It's got the keywords on it, it's got the meanings on it, and it helps you as a learning tool. All right, so we have, I think this is the last one. And this is with a spread, using a predetermined spread and questions. And this is my go-to. And this is my favorite thing, my favorite way to read with tarot cards or read with any cards is to have a spread, to have some questions, and to draw cards to go along with it. So this is a reading that I did for Beltane, and this was a live reading, so you can find the replay on my channel as well. And this is I used for that particular reading, I used the Tarot of the Witch's Garden because I thought this was a great deck to use for Beltane when things were growing. And it's a great deck. So here, and I won't go through all the questions here because you can go and watch the whole video. But this is my favorite way. I like to write the spreads. I like to write the questions. I like to do the graphics. I like to then answer the questions. And I like to find ones, like I said, find ones in guidebooks and use those. I like to find ones, there's lots of places on Pinterest, on Instagram, just, all kinds of places that have spreads and have suggestions and questions and things like that. And so this is my favorite way to do it. And so I have lots of you spreads like this that you can find on my Facebook page and my Instagram channel. And so if you like this, there's lots of ways out there to do it. And you can use these questions for if you don't want to do a reading, you can use the questions for just journaling prompts. You can use them with any other kinds of divination tools. You can use them with Lenormand cards, rune cards, um, uh, astrology cards. You can runes themselves, oghams. If you do the Celtic readings, you can. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways that you can use the questions, and you can do a meditation and meditate on the questions and then meditate on the card meanings. And so there's lots of different ways that you can do it. Now, that being said, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like readings at all, don't like the spreads, and you just want to put your cards out and do a reading. And that is just as beautiful. That's just as wonderful because you're still getting the reading, you're still getting the message that you need to get. You're still putting your intention into the reading. But I liken it to when I used to do a lot of scrapbooking. The blank page just really frightened me. So when I would sit down with a blank sheet of cardstock and think, I need to make I want to make a layout with this. I want to make a something beautiful with my pictures. And I have have all that I need. I've got my pictures and I've got my pretty patterned paper, and I've got the things that I want to go on it. But how do I do it? What do I do? How do I put the things in the places that they need to be put? And just like spreads for tarot, there were thousands of templates out there that I could go to and use as a basis for my layout, for my the spread that I was doing, and the what I would eventually put in on my scrapbook page. And so I just started collecting them, and I had just at first I printed them out because this was before Pinterest and things really became a thing. But I would print them out, and I would just, if I saw one that I really liked, that I thought that's really cool, I want to do something like that, then I would print it out. I would have a printout. Or if I sat down and I knew that I wanted to create a page, but I didn't really know where to start, I would do that. I would pull out some layouts, templates, magazines, anything that I had, and and then eventually, I went on an Instagram and Pinterest and things like that for ideas. But But it was great because it gave me that starting point. It gave me that place of I'm not just staring at this page and hoping that, inspiration will strike, because I just, I needed something for me to hook onto. And this is what the readings, the spreads, and the questions help me to do with my readings. It helps me, gives me something to start with. It gives me a place. And I know that if I'm doing this reading for belting, I've got these three cards. I've got the message that I need, and I don't really need to do anything else. And but other people really like to have this and to start with these three cards and then just keep adding. They like to add, some oracle cards and see, what the Page of Swords, what message the Page of Swords has. And the Eight of Swords, what is it that might be keeping you bound? And the Seven of Cups. There's a choice there. What should my choice be? And so, drawing more cards as clarifier cards, is great. And it gives you that place of just kind of just listening to your intuition. And there's lots of times that I do that. When I do my two cards in the morning, I don't really have a question for them. They're just the cards, and they're there, and I see what message I get from it. And I don't really, and a lot of people do with their daily draws have a question, and they'll have, say, what do I need to know about today? Or what energy is going to be prevalent today? Or something like that. And so, and so people might have that. And so that, I think, is where my more bringing the more intuition and less structure is in those two decks, because they are just, they're just my message. But when I'm doing, I'm doing a reading, like when I do the goddess readings, I have the one card that's for the goddess and the three cards that are clarifier cards or message cards. And then when I do, certain other readings, I'll have a five card spread that I'll do. Or if I have if I'm asking a question, I might have a three cards on the top and three cards on the bottom, a yes or a no. And so, but it just kind of gives me, and then I can add or subtract and do what I want to do for that. But again, it's you. It's totally you, your intention and the way that you use your cards, and what you like and what you don't like. And some people just don't like the structure, and there's lots of places where I don't like structure, and I don't like, I don't like that structure. But most of the time I do. Most of the time I like the structure. Most of the time I like having the questions, and I like having something that is there for me to do. So, how it works for you, and how you might want to just use questions like this and spreads like this for journaling, for inspiration, and for meditation, or and then and have your card readings totally separate. So it is what works for you, and it may shift for you. You may have times where you really want to have questions there, and sometimes that you might not really want to have questions there. And so, and it's just like with reading reversals. I don't read reversals, but there have been times that I have, and I have decided, I really want to use reversals again. And and it's great. Either way is great. And if you always use reversals, and that's the way that you read cards, then that's your way to do it. And that's perfect for you. If you don't, and you think that, if you need your cards, if you want your cards all face up, then that's the way that you read it as well. And so it's very personal, and the kind of decks that you use, are very personal as well. And so the really the most important thing is to make that connection and to make, have your intention in it. What is your intention for the reading? All right, that's it. Yay. And again, after, I kind of finished this one and got done with it, and I thought, there's different ways that I use it, but like, doing with the fiction book and using it in a game, and there's lots of different ways. And I've also used done readings with dice. And so there, and that's just one that I just didn't include in this one, but it'll be for next time. And this, I think, was a lot, and I'm hoping that it really gives you a way to look at your cards, and let me know. I would love to know the different ways that you use your cards, or if there's favorite decks that you have that you just go back to again and again, or the decks that you like for specific reasons, or that you use at specific times of the year. And that is all, lots of different rabbit holes you can go down. But this, I'm hoping that will give you a really good uh, place to start, some inspiration. And I'll have the PDFs. I'll have the PDFs, or a PDF download that you can look at the slides as well, so that you can see those if you want to go back and look at any of the pictures, or go back and look at any of the decks, or if you like any of the decks and you're interested in purchasing them. I will put as many of the links as I can to the decks in the description as well, and so that you can, if you like any of them. And there may be, I don't think that any of them you can't get right now. I think they're all not out of print and are still in available. Some may be on. You might be have to go to the person's website to get them, but I'll have that as well. So. Oh, that was great. And thank you so much for being here and sharing this with me. And I hope this is inspiration for you, and that you find new ways to use your cards. And because I think tarot is just, it's a beautiful, and any cards and any divination, it's our intention, and what we put into our intention, and how we use that to make magic with these tools, and with each other, and in this community. So again, thank you for being here, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye.